We continue to read more parables today, but I think of all the parables, these ones are probably the easiest to understand. By the way, we're at the end of the parables in Matthew's section now. Today, this is the final parables, and then next week we actually jump to the Transfiguration. But today's two main parables we have right there in the beginning is the one about the person who finds a treasure in the field. And at first you may be wondering, why doesn't he just take that treasure? Well, if we were to do that, he'd be stealing it, because that was the property of the person who owned the field. But he knew he could go to that person, because the person did not know that treasure was on there. He could go and say, let me buy this field for you. And so what does he have to do, though? First, he has to go get that money. So he does that, and he buys the field. And now he has the treasure and is a very happy man. The other parable, of course, we have is the one of the pearl of great price. And I think this one we probably understand a little better. And it's even great because sometimes I can just say the pearl of great price in the confessional, and most people know what we're talking about. Of course, in this parable, it's a merchant. And this merchant is always looking for this great pearl. Back in Jesus' time, pearls were not as common, especially the pearl of great price. There was plenty of gold. I mean, not like plenty where everyone was rich, but there was plenty of gold. It wasn't unfamiliar to see this. But to see a pearl of great price truly is something you can wait your whole life for. And this merchant has been trading and selling his whole life, finally trying to find this pearl. And so he finds it. And what does he do? In order to attain this pearl of great price, he has to go and sell everything else. But he knows once he has this pearl, he's going to be content. He doesn't have to search anymore. What is this pearl of great price in our life? It seems like in our life we're always trading and selling and everything else, trying to find something that's going to fulfill us. But we know the only thing that's truly going to fulfill us, or who is going to fulfill us, is God. Is God. He is our fulfillment. He is our grace. And so we sell everything else. We get rid of all those other worldly attachments. Not that they're bad in themselves necessarily, but if they're prohibiting us from experiencing this pearl of great price, if they're weighing us down, then we have to be freed from these things. Because it's only God who's going to bring us fulfillment. We could say we finally found what we've been looking for, right? We could use an athletic term. When we find that pearl of great price, what do we have to do? Keep our eye on the prize, right? Keep our eye on the prize. I remember hearing that all through high school, all through football season, a very, very long season. Keep your eye on the prize, starting all the way, in lifting, and then in August and 2-a-days and all that regular season. And you're just like, when is this season finally going to be over? But they always say, keep your eye on the prize. There's a story of a professional athlete I heard a couple of years ago. And so I heard this story, and I was so inspired, obviously I remember it, but there's one thing I didn't remember about the story. I didn't remember the athlete's name. So all week I've been Googling, trying to figure out who was this athlete, and Google failed me. I found a lot of other names of professional athletes, but not the one I was looking for. I know, isn't it amazing? The internet does not contain all that we need. I find that to be this phenomenally amazing. I thought it was always every answer I needed. But I still want to tell this story. We're just going to call this athlete an athlete. That sounds a lot better. But I remember he was a professional baseball player. Now, we think of a professional baseball player, their whole life, what do they want to be? As a kid, remember that 4th grade assignment you may have had as a kid? What do you want to be when you grow up? I remember I said, I want to become a professional football player. I was big, fat, we could say, right? So I knew I was going to be a lineman even back then. Now, I got to my sophomore year, and I was still big and fat, but not quite strong enough, and I knew I had to give up that dream of being a professional football player. But this professional athlete was very, very good at baseball. He was phenomenal at baseball. So all through grade school, he's been saying, I'm going to become a professional baseball player. And he got to high school, and he was good as well, so good that he got drafted out of high school. And he wasn't like a 1st-round pick or a 2nd-round pick, but he was good enough to be stuck in the minors for a long time. But he kept on working. And he was always longing to be called up to the show, they call it, the big show, the professional baseball, Major League Baseball. He's always longing for this to happen. And he thought, once I get called up to become a professional baseball player, my dreams will be realized. Well, sure enough, he got the call. And he's in the professional baseball. He was playing Major League Baseball. But he still says, I'm still lacking something. I'm still missing something. Maybe I want to become a better player. Maybe I want to become like an all-star or one of the top players on the team. So he worked harder. He persevered. He got that. He got all these accolades as a great player, but they didn't win the championship. They didn't win the World Series. So he kept on playing more and more. His goal only set, keeping his eye on the prize of a World Series champion. And so sure enough, his team finally got better. And he struggled with that for a long time. So he felt all this pain of losing. And they finally started to win. After a couple seasons, right? And they make the World Series, and they win it. He's on top of cloud 9. He's as happy as he can be. The parade, he goes to that, he's hooping and hollering it up, I'm sure, maybe popping some champagne if they did it back in the 70s when he was around. And he's very, very excited. And the parade ends, and he goes back, getting ready in the off season. And it hits him. My whole life, I've been trying to become a World Series champion. And now I am. And I'm still not fulfilled. He had the question, is this all there is? You see, his prize was a worldly prize. And it affected him so much that after winning the World Series, he actually went into a Great Depression. Because he had all these accolades, everything worldly he wanted. And he still wasn't fulfilled. His heart was still longing. I'm sure you can guess how the story goes after this. Who did he find? He found God. And in God, he finally saw himself for who he truly was. Not just a baseball player, but he saw himself as a son of God. And he knew that only in this relationship with God was he truly going to have fulfillment. He finally had this pearl of great price. And he realized that World Series championship was that false pearl. The relationship with God, our faith with God, is what we truly need to hang on. This has to be our prize, keeping our eye on God and God alone. I think we've all experienced this, by the way, in our life. A similar story to this baseball player. We think, if only I could become, a successful businessman. If only I'd become a mother of 5 perfect children, which will never happen, by the way, right? If I could be, this athlete, whatever it may be, if only I could be, as a priest with all these great things. It doesn't matter if we don't have God. Because God's the only one who's going to fulfill us. And so today, as we listen to this parable of the pearl of great price again, as we recall it in our mind, we call to mind, God, it's you who are the pearl of great price. It's you who I'm going to long for, who I'm going to strive for, because only in you will I find my fulfillment, because you are a God who is full of love, a God who is full of grace, a God who truly fills my heart.